Hi IndyCar fans, it's Martha and I want to welcome you to episode 23 of Cruising 41, and let's talk about Nashville and what happened this past Monday. That's part of the reason why I'm delayed in posting this video, but also not only because the race took place on Monday instead of Sunday, but also because there have been a lot of noise in the system about some breaking news to be released, which we know now about them. And so I wanted to wait a little bit just to be able to get a chance to talk to you about the news and also kind of like to give you my take on those breaking news. But the big headline of the race was Alex Palou, another win, a very intense race, a very powerful defense strategy for him to keep the win, and of course, you know, a total championship dominance and powerful statement. A practice session, I want to just touch briefly on the practice session because we saw a very big impact, actually a very considerable impact for David Malukas. It was very scary not only to see how that impact developed and seeing his onboard and what happened inside the car, but also it was scary to see how long he was taking to get out of the car. From his onboard, we saw that he was communicating with the emergency and safety person that was, you know, there trying to assist him, but it took a considerable amount of time for him to get out of the car. He underwent medical examination, and it was assessed that he could return, so he was able to return later that day. He was not able to participate in quali because he was at that time being still evaluated. So Team Penske for the Verizon number 12 car had Connor Daly, who was going to attempt to qualify the car in the event that David could not return. At the end, even Connor Daly couldn't get the car to qualify because of the impact and the team trying to put it together. My understanding is that it was still not ready and had an issue when they were when quali was getting started, so he was not able to qualify, and he started at the back. Staying with quali, we saw Graham Rahal. I just feel for him because this was just not his weekend. And so during quali, you know, he was in the queue to take his spot for quali, and the car had a fuel pressure issue. And when you are in the queue for quali, you have a certain amount of time by which you have to get out and do your quali runs. And they weren't able to get the car restarted on time for him to go out and do his quali laps. So he wasn't able to qualify, and then he was also sent to the back of the grid. Then during the final practice, he touched the wall. And, you know, like I was saying, it was just not a good day for him and his RLL. He was quite frustrated, and understandably so. Quali continue happening, and we saw Kyle Kirkwood on pole position. This was his first pole position for 2026, and if I remember correctly, this was the fourth of his career and second in Nashville, if I have my facts correctly. Pato qualified 12. His run was lacking that competitive edge and performance. The package was not strong for him to put a very competitive and a very competitive quali attempt, and so he put his McLaren on 12, his Aero McLaren. Then the race was supposed to take place on Sunday, right after the final match of the World Cup, and I'll talk a little bit about that entire situation and scenario a little bit later on once I debrief for you the race. But so ultimately the race was postponed to Monday because of the weather, storms present in the area, and obviously with ovals, it's very dangerous to run when there is rain. And then the other item that happened as a result of that rescheduling to Monday was that the race was reduced by 75 laps due to the weather conditions. But this time the weather had to do with how hot it was and potentially a safety concern for the drivers. Lastly, I will mention that for the race, we had that every driver had to run 2 sets of sticker reds. That's mandatory and that's part of the rules, and everybody had to abide by that. So the start was safe and clean, no issues whatsoever for the first several laps until lap 18, where we had our first full caution. This time it was, or the first one was Kyle Collette. He was in the barriers on turn 4. So we started to seeing the initial pit stop cycle. And again, you know, the tire strategy in IndyCar is always fascinating because, like in this case, because there's this mandatory 2 set of alternate tires. Some drivers decide to start on the alternates, as where others start right away with the primary tires. And so, just to remind everyone, the alternate tires are the softer compound, and so that also impacts when everybody starts coming into the pits for that next set of tires. So those that starts on the soft, usually they last less and they degrade faster. So the strategies do play a role, and obviously also any cautions that are taking place during the race also impact those strategies. So in the initial pit cycle, we had Scotty Mack taking advantage over Kirkwood, Palou, and Newgarden, and he was able to get ahead of that group of 4. And David Malukas, like I mentioned, you know, he started towards the back because he wasn't able to qualify. At this point of time, during that initial cycle of pit stops, and because of the differing strategies, David Malukas was on the lead with old primary tires. So primary tires is a harder compound, and he was being able to make it work. So on lap 108, Marcus Armstrong had an engine issue and he had to go into the pits. Lap 116, Christian Rasmussen, who is just very, very good when it comes to ovals, and he is always one that it's kind of like taking it to the edge. And because he does that, he gives us such amazing performance, but also such exciting racing when it comes to the ovals. On lap 116, he touched the wall and you know, he went into the pits. He was just really playing on the edge, like I said, kind of like with that high line a little bit. Then David Malukas, he had his second pit stop on lap 121. And then lap 123, we had a full course caution because of a very unusual yet very freaky incident between Alexander Rossi and Scott Dixon. It appears as though Rossi was getting or attempting to go into the pits, and then Dixon kind of like went into the back of his car. It was a very odd accident. I mean, you're talking about 2 very experienced drivers, and especially so Scott Dixon, for sure. And the piece that was just so freaky too was when you saw it from the onboard, and actually during the broadcast, not even the broadcasters couldn't understand what had happened, and it was it was not clear what had happened. And then when you see the onboard, even though, you know, Alexander Rossi was attempting to go to the pits, at least from my standpoint, it wasn't that clear that he was slowing down for that. So as a result, Scott Dixon, didn't anticipate, for whatever the reason, that there was going to be this going slower, and then he hit the back of Alexander Rossi. Kind of like, if I remember correctly, he hit the wall and then came back kind of like to the pit lane, as the impact developed. Dixon sustained a broken front wing, and he was able to get into the pits and get that fixed. So Dixon was able to rejoin lap 130, but he had lost so much time and so many laps, so he was running way in the back. So then Palou took the lead on lap 136. We also had yet another incident. This time it was willpower. He touched the wall lap 144, and he was able to carry it on, but also lost ground, and he finished last, if I remember correctly, because he had to go into the pits, get that looked at, and then while he was able to rejoin, he finished last. Then with 44 to go, we had yet another caution. This time it was Dennis Hauer. He hit the wall turn 3. So this, with Dennis, and at the initial, at the start of the race with Kyle Collette, those were 2 out of the 3 rookies out of this race. So like I said, Palou was in the lead. He was, for that final stint, on the primary tire, which in theory is not your fastest tire. But, this is Alex Palou, and he always makes everything work. So he was just really getting great performance out of the car, even with that compound tire. So Malukas, because, remember that he pitted, and then after we had a caution, so that did not work well for him. But even with that, at this point of the race, with like 21 laps to go, he was in 3rd. And it is like super commendable and a super performance from him. Got to remember that he had that bad accident during the practice session, and then he was sent to the back because he wasn't able to qualify. At the end, Alex Palou, like I said at the beginning, he had a fantastic defense strategy, super well executed, and he was able to hold on the win from Joseph Newgarden. This is Alex Palou, 5th win of the season. He led about 87 laps, and so when you take a look at the season thus far, we have had 6 different winners. Congratulations to Alex Palou. This was also the 150th win for Chip Ganassi Racing, so congrats to the team as well. Joseph finished 2nd, and David Malukas 3rd. So you had all 3 Penske's in the top 4. So that's how strong they are. Their package is when it comes to short ovals. Kirkwood, it wasn't, after starting on pole, it wasn't quite the race that he would have liked and he would have expected. And he finished 10th. When it comes to the championship, it was not a good result at all for him. Now he's being passed by Damon Lucas. And so now David is 2nd in the championship, but still an 83-point gap to Alex Palou. It really, seemed that, Alex Palou may have this championship all wrapped up already. But we still have some races to go, so we shall see. Now, I want to give a big shout out to Mick Schumacher. And actually, I got my Mick Schumacher shirt on. There's 3 rookies in IndyCar this year, and he's one of those 3. The other 2, Kyle Collette and Dennis Hauer, like I mentioned earlier, they were out of the race, both with impacts in, to the wall. And Mick had an outstanding race, finishing 8th behind Pato. He started 18th, I believe, and this is his first top finish for him in IndyCar. And he was also the best of the RLL drivers. So, from Graham and from Louis Foster, who didn't have competitive races. And it was awesome. And he did fantastic. It was exciting to see how competitive he was and how he was handling himself in not only the oval conditions, but also the heat. So it was great race for him. Kudos. And I feel very strongly that Mick Schumacher is going to start getting very good results, and he's going to have a very long stay and a long career in IndyCar. Then let's talk a little bit about Pato. Pato started 12th and finished 7th. The downforce package that Aaron McLaren brought, it was not competitive. There was a lack of pace. As he always does, he did what he could with that car that was actually not performing to the level that he needed in order for him to secure a great position for the team. Regardless, 12 to 7, it was a decent race, but not the kind of race that he would have liked. So he was frustrated, obviously. And it is surprising to see this kind of performance from Aaron McLaren after how strong the team had been in the ovals. So, and especially last year, they haven't found that, excuse me, that competitive package this year for whatever the reason. I want to talk about a couple of things. The first one is the news that we just, I think they came out yesterday. So today is Thursday. I'm recording this on Thursday. And the news came out yesterday. So one of the 25 charters and one of the 3 that actually belong to RLL, Rahal, Letterman, Lenigan, was sold to Dreyer and Rainbow Racing. And this is great news, I believe, not only for DRR and getting and securing this charter, because now it means that we're going to have that extra team on the grid on every race. Right now, DRR only participates, as you all know, in the Indianapolis 500. It's one of the extra entries every year. And but they got a great history in the sport, and they used to be a full-time team in the past. So coming back as a full-time team is great. So only 2 charters remain for RLL, so we shall see how this plays out in the entirety of the silly season. And, what happens to the 3 RLL drivers. One obviously assumes that Graham Rahal is obviously secured in the team, but we still have Louis Foster and Mick Schumacher. I have no doubt that both of them will be able to stay in the sport, but we shall see how it all, develops. But it is great news to see such a dedicated team as DRR coming back as a full-time team. So when I heard the news, I felt that was mega, and that was absolutely outstanding news. The other item I want to talk about a little bit is the IndyCar plan to have the Nashville race after the World Cup final game. And I love that Fox is so committed to the sport and believes so heartedly on the IndyCar product that is trying to find the best possible platforms and the best possible ways to showcase the sport and to put this great product out there for even wider audiences, if you will. And so I think that was a very intentional, strategic move to decide that they were not going to start until the World Cup the final game was done and finished, and then we will move right into IndyCar. So Love the energy, love that they're trying to do these great strategies. I just want to also highlight that it was always a risk, and I think it was calculated risk by Fox Sports Network to that the weather could play a factor, and that the weather, could kind of like impact the plan. And the strategic decision was made, well, still go forward with it, and it's a calculated risk. The thing, though, that I was worried about, and I'm not sure if this conversation even took place, and if so, how this was weighted. And we will never know the result because the race, was canceled and rescheduled for Monday. They had, I'm sure, when they looked at the data, they saw that, for instance, during the race that we had in Road America, the viewership went up by 131% from last year, same race, according to their numbers that they published. And they had a peak viewership between like 229 and 230. So when you take a look at data like that, and I'm sure they took a look at the other races and how it was impacted or not by the World Cup. So, of course, they tried to make that decision to put the race after the World Cup because of the viewership that the final match was going to attract. For instance, that Road America race happened in between two World Cup games. So if you are a World Cup fan, a football fan, soccer fan, then you turn on the TV, you watch that game, which I think that game was Spain. That was a Spain game right before the race. And because we were still in the group games, so there was not going to be overtime or anything. And then we had the IndyCar race, and then another game. So if you're like a soccer fan, you probably leave the TV on, after the game, and you get, exposed slightly to IndyCar. Maybe you're watching it or not, but you have it tuned in, because as soon as it's done, then the pre-game show will start for the next game in the World Cup. So when you take that into consideration, I am not quite sure, and that was my worry again, that if you're a soccer fan and you're watching the World Cup, the final game, and the final game ends, I don't know that you will necessarily keep your TV on to watch the IndyCar race, because there's not another game after that. And so anyway, we will never know. I still want to praise IndyCar and Fox for really trying to put the series into the best possible scenario for them to be a product that people consume. And I also get it that even if someone would have stayed for like 3 minutes after the World Cup to just watch the beginning of the race, anyone who gets exposed and is not a regular fan of IndyCar, it's good news for the sport. So don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to be a downer here, but at the same time, I had that worry. We will never know since it was rescheduled, but that was the analysis I kind of made when I was thinking about the decision that Fox made to keep it after the World Cup. The other one thing I would just say very quickly on that is, okay, I could be totally wrong on this, but I don't remember during the entire World Cup final seeing anything impactful that would grab someone's attention to say, oh, maybe I'll stay after the race to watch, IndyCar, or I'm sorry, after the game to watch IndyCar. Like, for instance, I was thinking, and I don't think, just, feel free to leave me in the comments if this is kind of like not what happened, but I would have loved to see, like, how those ads that they have about this is Joseph Newgarden, this is Pato Award. it would have been great. I mean, Spain is playing, right? So the final match, if they would have had this, is Alex Palou. Anyway, I think you get my point, that I think it was also an opportunity to kind of like, even if people wouldn't tune in after the game, perhaps getting exposed to some of those commercials may have piqued some of the interest. I don't know. So then we go to Portland in about 3 weeks' time. Portland is, well, not 3 weeks. I think it's in a couple of weeks. August 9th, I believe. Portland is a 1.967 road course, and we have seen Honda dominated day there the last few years. Will Power has won it a couple of times, and Alex Palou, of course, has won it. So, you know, the last 3 years at least is been Honda dominated. So we'll see. Hopefully it will be a good race. Road course usually means Christian Lundgaard could be strong, but with the issues that we've been seeing with Aero McLaren in the package, we'll see. So hopefully it will be an exciting race. So that's it for the Nashville debrief. If you have, you know, some strong views or, you know, any views, just let me know, interact with me, leave your comments here. Interact with me on my other social channels. Let me know what you thought of the race, what you thought of that magnificent performance by David Malukas and also by Mick Schumacher. And what do you think about Aero McLaren and their lack of performance, and anything else that you want to you know, interact with me on. Also, if you have any questions about, you know, this charter being sold and what does that mean, just let me know. If you have any questions on that or anything else, by all means let me know. I would love really to interact. Like the video and subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. And I look forward to talking to you soon to debrief Portland, and hopefully it will be an exciting, wonderful, competitive, and maybe we get a new winner kind of race. I'll talk to you then. Thank you. Bye.